All right, everybody, let's call to order this regular city council meeting for November 12th, 2024. If you wouldn't mind rising and joining me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mr. Sarah, let's take roll call, please, and thank you.
Okay, Counselor Rittma.
Here.
Counselor Caswell.
Here.
Counselor One.
Here.
Counselor White.
Here.
Counselor Wittrin.
Present.
Counselor Glantz.
Present.
Mayor Lauer.
Here. All right, Mr. City Manager, off in a sunny place. It looks pretty dark, so I'm not super jealous. Do you have any agenda updates for us?
No, Senor Mayor Jefe, there are no changes to the agenda.
All right, thank you very much. I'm going to open up public comment. Public comment on non-agenda and consent agenda items is welcome at this time. Public comment on agenda items will be taken at the time the item is considered. Public comment should be directed to the presiding officer and limited to matters of community interest or related to matters which may or could come before council. Each speaker shall be limited to 5 minutes for each agenda item unless a different amount of time is allowed by the presiding officer with consent of the council. The council and mayor should avoid immediate or protracted responses to citizen comments. If you are in council tonight and wish to make public comment, go ahead and approach the desk and state your name and city of residence for the record. All right, anybody on Zoom tonight wishes to make public comment, go ahead and unmute yourself and state your name and city of residence for the record, please. All right, not seeing anybody, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment. We're going to move on to agenda item number 3, consent agenda 3.1 minutes, October 8th, 2024, City Council regular meeting.
I move adoption. A second.
Seconded. Let's go ahead and take roll, please, Sarah.
Okay. Counselor Rittma.
Yes.
Counselor Caswell.
Yes.
Counselor One.
Yes.
Mayor Lauer.
Yes.
Counselor White.
Yes.
Counselor Wittrin.
Yes.
And Counselor Glantz.
Yes.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so next agenda item is we are going to call to order our Urban Renewal Agency special meeting. We're going to keep it on this same Zoom. We're not closing Zoom and opening Zoom again. It's going to stay right here. So actually, Ed, do I need to adjourn this meeting before we call to order our urban renewal?
Technically, it's probably better to do that, but I think that you can call it as a simply. I'm not coming up with the word. It's like pause.
A recess?
A recess. Thank you, sir. A recess for a few moments while the urban renewal agenda is addressed. Thank you again, Ray.
Thank you. We're going to recess the regular city council meeting and call to order the Urban Renewal Agency special meeting. Let's go ahead and take roll, Sarah.
Okay. Director Rittma.
Yeah. Here.
Director Caswell.
Here.
Director One.
Here.
Director White.
Here.
Director Wittrin.
Present.
Director Glantz.
Here.
Chair Lauer.
And here. Let's go ahead and move on to agenda item number 4, consent agenda 4.1 minutes, June 18th, 2024, Urban Renewal Agency regular meeting. And 4.2 resolution, a resolution granting a non-exclusive utility easement to Portland General Electric Company.
I move adoption of the consent agenda, 4.1 and 4.2.
Second.
All right.
Okay. Director Rittma.
Yes.
Director Caswell.
Yes.
Director Wen,
Yes.
Chair Lauer,
Yes.
Director White,
Yes.
Director Wittrin,
Yes.
and Director Glantz.
Yes.
Thank you very much, everybody. We're going to move on to agenda item number 5, a motion to approve request for qualifications for the Confluence of Troutdale, Confluence at Troutdale, Erica Palmer, and Marley. You have the floor.
Good evening, Erica Palmer, Community Development Director, and this is Marley Boxler, our Economic Development Coordinator. Tonight before you, you have an updated request for qualifications for the Confluence site. I'm gonna turn this over to Marley here. She's gonna tell you a little bit about where we've been, where we're at, and how we're moving forward. Sarah, would you mind closing the little tab over there? Thank you, everyone. Okay, so we are covering what we have been working on thus far with the Confluence at Troutdale. So, see if I can figure out how to. So tonight, as Erica had mentioned, we are going to go over the background of what we've done so far, starting very long ago, and a summary of changes that we made to the RFQ, and then our next steps. This has been a very important topic to a lot of people, so I thought it was good for us to frame the history of this site, how long we've been working on this, and everything that has happened on this site. This is a picture that shows it in very early days from looking up the hill, but since the 1880s to 2001, this site was used for industrial uses, from slaughterhouses, wool pulleries, sewage treatment plants, celery farms, ranches, the list goes on. And as a result, it was a brownfield that needed to be cleaned up and remediated, which the city did between 2005 and 2021. With the creation and adoption of the Troutdale Riverfront Renewal Plan, and then the actual site cleanup work itself. We're not at a point with DEQ where we have the no further action letter. It is up to standards that can be developed for residential use, which is the highest standard. We are really proud of all the work that went into that, and all the time and effort and money that went into making that happen. So in 2022, we went through our first round of requests for qualifications, and we received 4 qualified responses to that. And you all have tasked the Town Center Advisory Board to review those applications and provide a recommendation to the Urban Renewal Agency on who they believed would be the best option for the city to move forward with in an exclusive negotiation agreement. The selected partner was Capstone, and unfortunately that was not able to be a successful, wasn't able to come to fruition due to some things that were outside of our control. So now we are moving forward with our second round of the request for qualifications. So we want to put this forward again to developers. And we've been working on updating the RFQ document because there were some necessary changes that needed to be made to that. So the other thing I'll note in that is that the Sand River Trail construction kicked off this year, so we're really excited about that being done, and that's what we're doing in the meantime while we continue to look for a developer for this site. So with the RFQ document, you all may recall what it looked like before. The updated version was in your packet, and I summarized some of the changes that we made. One of the primary things that we did was emphasize this as a destination development. We've changed some of the wording in the document to be to further emphasize that this is a destination that's worthy of visiting to and worthy of being proud of, and that there's nothing like this. And there was a lot of language changing on establishing it as this destination that people would want to come to. Specifically, one of the things was a vibrant destination connected to nature and the community that values local history, sustainable design, and livability. And then we added the destination strategic plan as an additional resource. We also included some site history and encouraged the telling of these stories through placemaking elements and building materials. We had sort of encouraged that in the previous round, but we never told the actual history itself. So it was hard for developers to know exactly what stories to tell if we weren't telling them ourselves. So we added that in, and then we eliminated language regarding future connections through Outlet Mall. We updated language regarding the Sandy Riverfront Park and Trail. We updated pictures and data, and we are also planning to continue to update the data once we have 2024 numbers. But those until the year's over. So that's kind of a high-level summary of the changes that were made. There's other, small, like moving a couple things around a little bit here and there, but for the most part, it stayed pretty much the same, and we don't imagine that there'd be further changes to it other than a couple of those data point changes, which we're working with GPI to assist us with those right now as well. So next steps are, if approved, we'll make those changes and we'll have it ready for publication in early 2025. We anticipate that the last cycle we did a 60-day process for people to put together their responses and submit them to us. We'll probably do something around that same timeline, and then do tours of the site with the interested developers and have those back, late spring, probably late spring or early summer to begin reviewing again. And if you have any questions, please let us know.
All right. Any questions from the Urban Renewal Agency Board? Comments or questions? Can I have the screen back, please?
Yeah.
I have a question. And that's more about like the RFQ and the process. When you send it out, are you sending it out with does it get sent out with a message of what you or the city or we are looking for as a development of the site? And maybe I need to be more clear.
So when we send it out, I mean, it includes the entire RFQ document, which goes into really great detail on what we want on the site. There will probably have some language that we'll craft for just like a really quick summary on also what we would like to see on the site, but really that's what the RFQ document is supposed to do, is it's supposed to explain to a developer what we're looking to do. We could probably further create like a one-page quick summary sort of a document that can go with the RFQ potentially. We were sort of already talking about doing that anyways. As like a quick advertisement essentially for it. But the specifics are really in the RFQ.
Okay, and that won't be ready until the beginning of the year, or is it ready now? Sorry.
It is, for the most part, ready now. The only thing that we're planning on changing is the data. I
Okay.
believe it was in the packet. Yeah, I believe it was in the packet.
If you could summarize for me or us of what kind of message are we putting out there of what we want for this site in general, I guess? Or is it way broader, I guess?
So there's a couple of changes that were made to the RFQ that make it more broad this time around, but also more specific. So in the past, there was an example site plan that was in there that showed really clearly like where you could put buildings and roads and all sorts of things. And the request from the Town Center Advisory Board, the input that we received was that we didn't want to put that site plan in there this time because we wanted people to be more creative. So we did remove that. However, we got a lot more specific in our project goals section and refined those and more clearly stated those better. So there are certain expectations in there of what we're hoping to see. Off the top of my head, some of the things we talk about are hotel development, food and beverage, either restaurants or like breweries, distilleries. Like it could be a maker space where they have a consumer facing side, like a retail storefront or a tasting room. Housing is in there. The connections with the park is in there and emphasized many times. even further gathering spaces like a market space. What else do we have? Am I forgetting?
A mix of like active commercial uses. So if you look on page 6 and 7,
Yeah.
those are our detailed project goals.
Okay.
The water tower preserved and used as like a placemaking element is in there as well. We did do more, since we were talking about destination so much, we did do more emphasizing of the hospitality side of things and having the active uses, especially along the riverfront. And then there was some changes that we made to like stormwater management and like showing some example photos of how you could incorporate stormwater management in a design that's like really beautiful and like people are encouraged to explore and whatnot instead of just, you know,
Okay.
single.
Were you involved in the first RFQ that went out also?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I guess I'm gonna be more specific then and say, I see the project goals and all those things make sense and I like where we're going with that. I am getting the sense that this is like limited to some sort of housing / hotel / industrial / restaurant type of development. And is there room within the RFQ that somebody that has a different idea could come in that does not involve housing or hotels or anything like that to make a pitch for the site?
I mean, hypothetically, anyone could respond to the RFQ, we would still receive the, whatever proposal they had, it just doesn't necessarily meet the goals and objectives that were laid out through not only this, but the Riverfront Renewal Plan and the Town Center Plan and the Framework Plan, and so all the other planning processes that have been going on since like 2001.
Yeah. 2001 is a long time ago.
Yeah.
And so I'm just gonna say this out loud, and I'm gonna be something like this. I think that this is a great area that we can bring people to Troutdale, and I don't know if having people just live there is going to do much for Troutdale in terms of bringing people here and connecting and getting all this done. And so I feel pretty strongly that I want to have an open space within this document for people that and I'm going to be direct with, that have an idea for like a large park or sports facilities that bring people to Troutdale. And I think that like, I had heard a lot over the last, couple of years of what we wanted. And I came in a process, like way down the road of it. And the last one we chose seemed like a really great idea. And I think it made the best use of but the mall didn't work out. And the more and more I thought about it is that I don't think that is something that really like does anything for Troutdale, to be honest. And I'm not saying it's not your choice or whatever. I'm just kind of saying this to everybody in this group. I think I've heard a lot of words of like, we need something cool for Troutdale. We need something for Troutdale that is vibrant and connected to the city and brings people here. It's a destination. Like, you have been working really hard to bring people to the city with events and whatnot. And I don't feel like this necessarily brings people to our city necessarily. I think the idea of a hotel down there is, I don't see that working out myself. But what I do see is that having a park / something that brings people to Troutdale every week, every weekend, that can provide a space for people to go and play and enjoy Troutdale, I think is something that I would like to see within this process, that there's room for that. And what I heard you kind of say was that if I were to have this idea of a sports complex facility that has lights and turf and like thousands of families every weekend come to Troutdale, what I heard you say is like, I would read through this and I probably would say like, they're not gonna want that for their city. And I just feel like somewhere within this, I would like there to be an avenue for somebody with like an idea like that, or a large park or something that can beautify Troutdale and bring people here. And maybe it is, and maybe you, in your language and what you, and how you see it, there is an avenue, but I don't, everything I've been a part of for the last 2 years does not make me feel like that is an option.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think that you're right, if someone was, a developer was reading this, they wanted to propose something like that, they probably wouldn't necessarily feel like that's what's being encouraged to propose. On the other hand, though, I think that if you're talking about parks and public spaces like that, one of the challenges is that cities typically fund parks and pay for the establishment and the maintenance of parks. So if someone's going to propose a large-scale park like that, they would also need to propose how it would be funded and maintained and what the financial feasibility of that would be. The urban renewal area is a TIF district, which is a tax increment financing district, which means that the property taxes that are generated on that site help fund other public improvements. And we have allocated a portion of that to go towards the park and trail that we're currently building. And there's a certain limit to what we can actually like fund and whatnot that's set by specific standards. But the property taxes need to be generated to pay that money back. So we have to have something that's gonna generate revenue. So if someone wants to propose a sports complex, they would just need to be able to prove that it could be financially sustainable in order to fund what we've already dedicated funding for, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I just feel like we're in a hard position to get something there that, with those parameters, and that the city's in debt to this place. Not, this is like the last real big piece of land that Troutdale has. I just feel like it can be so much better used to bring people to our city. And, you know, things like sports and stuff has not only grown over the last 20 to 30 years, it is its own industry. And I just think of it as firmly from the point of, is that we are trying to make Troutdale a destination. We're trying to bring people here to spend money here, come to our downtown, come eat at our facilities. And what better way than to bring people here each weekend that are different constantly is something around that idea. Not having people live down there necessarily, sure, that's gonna be great property tax revenue probably for the city. But I don't think it does anything for bringing people to Troutdale. And so I'm not saying, and again, I'm just looking at you and speaking with, and I feel like I thought maybe I had more time to kind of digest this, but if we're putting this out, then I think that I wanted to get my words out there to make sure that when at least there's an avenue within this process for something like that. And if I realize that you know, our vote is to not go that way, I'm fine with that. That's how the process works. But I really truly feel strongly that putting some condos down there and townhouses in a hotel is not something that is cool for Troutdale. Might be cool for those people down there, and they're going to be isolated from the city. But anyways, thank you. I appreciate you answering my questions.
Councilor Richard.
The last RFQ that we had, the difference between the capstone and all the other suitors was a vast difference when, in opinion, by the public, the Town Center Advisory Board, by the council, the disparity was huge. What are we doing differently on this RFQ to get more suitors, get more options? Is it time? And then economics also came up last time, of everybody that came to present was very concerned about the economics of development out there and timing and how long everything. What has changed? What is different in the RFQ? Timing wise, or are we reaching out more across the country? What are we doing differently this time around?
So when we do put this out, we want to make sure that we're touching everyone that's out there. And we'll have to go back to see where it was published before and just make sure we're hitting all the appropriate development agencies or folks that are interested out there. That's one thing
Yeah,
we can do differently.
With the last one, we had done a number of interviews and the action planning process leading up to it, so we had sort of already had a list of potential developers who we knew would be interested or could be interested with more information. And then we did some site visits as well. I think that there was more emphasis on outreach to housing developers last time, and less to, say, hospitality developers or other types of development developers. And so this time we can seek out the agencies, more of the agencies that, or the organizations that sort of connect developers with one another. I'm trying to think, it was the one that's, Urban Land Institute is one that we can reach out to that can help us publish the RFQ and get it out to more people across the country and regionally.
And I just want to add, the park, the construction of the park and trail wasn't there last time, and I think that's really going to be a huge driver to a lot of folks. They're going to see that the city has already started to put money into this site and to develop a great asset to the community, and how a development could play in to that asset.
Just an opinion, is being on the town center advisory board last time, and council is get as many as we can, give us as many choices, we give town center advisory board as many choices. More options, the better. It just seemed very narrow scoped last time, except for Capstone. So, my 2 cents.
Counselor Caswell.
Yeah, can someone remind me what's a developer name or proposal name that Remick was involved in a couple years ago that they submitted? Maybe Ray, what was their name? I just can't remember.
We're talking about Capstone Partners.
Was it Capstone that Mike Greenslade and Bremick were a part of, their proposal?
No, that was a different group that was not selected.
Right. Yeah, they weren't selected, but they did submit. And I think that they, because of the economy at the time, decided not to be a part of the project. Am I correct?
Yeah, Marley, Erica, do you have a insight on that one?
Yeah, so Bremick was working with Ethos and Time Equities, actually. They had put together a joint application and I think it was Bremick who was their selected construction management group, and which was unique because most of them don't select something like that so far in advance.
Yeah.
They just weren't one of the ones that we had selected. There was no reason, there wasn't a specific reason why they didn't work on the project other than they weren't with Capstone, who was the selected developer.
I see. Okay, I just couldn't quite remember how that happened. Yeah, I was on council when we did go through that, but was trying to remember. But I do remember really liking their proposal. And it had a lot of really strong elements that I see that do function well with, I believe, and is where I'm coming from, a really wonderful practical success that could operate in the location. Like, I mean, they had really cool, great high-end apartments. And in here it says there is substantial need for higher amenity housing types, including detached and attached housing types for households earning more than 100,000. I'm reading that in what we have here in the packet. You know, and I really think, like, just looking around at what people love and gravitate toward, like, you know, Raleigh, or the Slabtown area off of Northwest 23rd and like kind of Raleigh Street, you know, in Portland. Like, we went out here a couple years ago, and this kind of what you've given us, like, I just see this in different areas here locally, like, working really well, where there's quality housing and quality retail, and we have such a great opportunity to kind of combine that with a nice outdoor space too. Like, I really love what you guys are doing, and I personally think it would be worth going back, and reconsidering maybe some of our local folks who already are committed to the area, like people like Bremick, like they threw their hat in the ring a couple years ago, and I think we should go back and kind of court people to submit again, because we really got some quality applications in the past, and I think we need to open ourselves up again to that here. And I really don't think that that place needs to be pigeonholed into a certain, genre of anything, be it sports or entertainment or whatever else. I really love the idea of a hotel, like a boutique hotel, high-end apartments over retail, and a really, really classy, walkable, open space where people can go and enjoy as if it were a park. And that way the city could really, really look at getting some revenue back, and not losing a lot of money on this too. So anyway, I just wanted to look back in the future, or back in the past, at what we had looked at, and I wanted to revisit that in our conversation too. So appreciate it.
Mr. Ray Young.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to follow a couple of things. Those are all great comments and great ideas, and I don't have it in front of me, but I think the ask was very broad in this. So we listed like 6 or 7 different types of development that we were looking for, because we want to cast a broad net. It is something that we want to make sure we get out to a lot of people, such as Bremick and all the other developers we had put bids in before. And yes, a lot of things have changed since 2006 in terms of what expectations might be. The problem we had last time with Capstone was that the mall owner very clearly and sternly said they did not want to play ball with anybody developing the property behind them. And so we ran into that issue, and that removed Capstone from the equation. And that was one of the things we changed in this new FRQ of the things that's already been mentioned. We took out any reference to the mall as being a possible partner. It's just like, nah, like I said, they were very stern and don't bother us again about that development. So we have to accept the reality of the location. But we have to remember that we will only attract what the market wants to build. Somebody's going to spend $50 to $100 million out there, and they're only going to spend that for something they can make money on. That is the limiting factor we have doing a private-public partnership. We could create an RFQ that was very focused on exactly what we want out there. But we got to remember, if the market doesn't want to finance it or pay for it or do it, it'll sit there vacant. Again, another 10 or 15 years. What we have learned from dealing with the last developers who put in bids, and what we've learned with talking to people like Cascadia Partners, and what we know about the state of Oregon, is housing primarily, and then a hotel, both have a pretty good legs in terms of what might be coming to that property. So that's why we expect some of that. Hey, if we get something else different and better, y'all get to decide that, and that's great. But we do have to remember that if something out there is primary housing or a hotel, Troutdale does significantly benefit. First of all, whatever the market wants to pay for out there will allow us to sell the property sooner, and the general fund has loaned over $6 million to the URA to buy and redevelop this property, and the general fund will get that money back as soon as we're able to develop it. Second of all to remember is that housing out there and a hotel will put 400 to 500 people within easy walking distance to downtown, which is what that trail is going to provide. And finally, and this is my personal opinion, and you could view it however you want to, but if we put too much commercial out there, it'll take away from downtown, which I don't know for a town the size of Troutdale is a good thing. I mean, you look at Gresham. What did Burnside do to downtown Gresham? I mean, they've got several different commercial areas, even for a very large city. I think Troutdale size, having a development out there that supports downtown might be best in the long run for the city of Troutdale. But again, we're going to put out a broad net, see what comes in when we pull it in, and we'll have, hopefully, like last time, a number of options.
Director Glantz.
I have a couple comments and questions. One of the things I found confusing in reading through this from just a outside perspective was I read all we want this to be a destination, but then in reading through like some of the development code, it's like no kinds of entertainment, which to me seemed a little opposites, where you almost need some kind of, whether it's a sports field or, a field where there can be outdoor concerts or movies in the park, kind of a thing. It seemed opposite to say we want it to be a destination, but really the only thing that said destination to me was a hotel. And then one of my questions was, are sports venues considered events that were specifically banned from being done there?
I believe that sports venues are considered active recreation in the development code, but it's been a while since I've looked at Dakota by me. Our planners just said that is correct. So I think what's a little bit challenging for us right now, if we're gonna start having conversations around sports venues or parks or amphitheaters, is that typically we have understood putting Edgefield aside, we've understood a lot of those to happen in parks, and so we've accounted for them in the open space zoning and not necessarily in our other zoning districts. But it doesn't mean that it's necessarily excluded from those zoning districts. I think we would just have to take a deeper look at like what specifically it says is and are not allowed.
What's permitted and what's conditionally permitted within that zone. And it depends on, the size. If we're looking at, a stadium of some sort, is gonna be, different, I think, than sports fields per se.
Well, one of the other comments I had too on sports fields is that in the parks master plan, there's the area, it would be on the southeast corner of Sweetbriar and Troutdale Road. There's a large section there that is designated to be sports fields. So I know some of that's already in the master plan, parks master plan. I don't know that we need more sports fields down there, but I was just trying to understand if we want this to be a destination, then it feels like there should be attractions, and I'm not sure a hotel is really, and a restaurant is an attraction. Rather than just telling people, tell us what you think should be there. We want the park to be the focus. We want this to be something that Troutdale will be proud of. What can you do?
All right, any other comments or questions?
I was trying to unmute Council but I'm sure I can do it from here, so I'm not sure if he has a question.
There he goes. Counselor White, do you have a comment?
Yeah, to say that that plan is outdated, I don't think is really fair, because it was a commitment to the people that voted for that, to spend that kind of money and clean that site. And I think we have to, to me, the recreational site is the entire scenic gorge, the new bicycle trails that's coming in. And I'd like to see a bigger effort to reclaim the, Sandy River Delta property, because it started off great and it got taken over. And that's where that should go. But we need to put Troutdale on the map with this site. I see it as, kind of the Maui Beach of Troutdale, because it's on waterfront property. It's a view property. And I think, to help our downtown the most would be, to have another attraction, get people off the freeway. Because a lot of people think Troutdale was just the truck stops as they drive by I-84. So it needs to be something special. I love what Erica and Marley put together, and TCAP. And a lot of the TCAP members were part of that original team. So I don't think they're going to back off of what they're proposing. And I don't think they should, because they realize the commitment we made to our Troutdale citizens. And I think it's a wonderful plan. My only worry is we're going to put Bend out of business if we go forward, and
the pictures that were put together on this thing, just, it's amazing. So I think we really got to make this a special place, and it can't just be, you know, a low-end project. It has to be kind of a high-end thing. So think of it in those terms. That's our only waterfront property we have, and I'm glad Sandy mentioned the property, the 15 acres, I think, is going to be designated for another sports field. And we've already spent, you know, $5 million for that linear park. So I feel like, you know, that's only going to help attract quality development to that project.
All right, Mr. Ray Young.
Thank you, Mayor. So what I've heard so far as direction for staff from council so far is that wherever appropriate in the RFQ, we should probably include language such as the above is just suggestions, and the city is open to any reasonable proposal to develop the property that would benefit the citizens of Troutdale. So we just want to make sure that nobody looks and goes, oh, this is all they want. So that's kind of what I've heard from the comments so far, is that would be a change several places in the document to make sure that everybody understands, hey, we're open to anything.
All right, any other comments or questions? Councilor Caswell?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to say that I really agree with everything that Glenn just said. And I mean, I don't know, this is my personal opinion, how much we should open it up to anything and everything. We spent a lot of time, you know, going through it before and saying, you know, I don't think that this would be appropriate. I don't think that would be appropriate. And for really good reasons, we said maybe not, you know, to some things. I think that we should really focus on nurturing some relationships to open up some options. I think that we should be discretionary in what we allow, you know, but I mean, whoever wants to apply will apply. But I do think that we need to really prioritize this vision, and this is a beautiful vision that you guys have put in front of us, and thank you for your time on it. So you know, I think that, you know, while we can maybe keep our options open, we should not lose sight of this does need to be a high-end quality experience for people with restaurants and really wonderful unifying walkable elements to it. And I believe that we did get that before, and I believe that we should revisit it in much the same way as we did before. And with the emphasis on how do we do this with new folks now that we understand more about who's willing to do what, and now that the outlet mall is not a part of a major obstacle conversation, I think that just gives us more awareness, actually. So anyway, I wanted to come behind Councillor White in strong agreement with what you said, Glenn. Thank you for thank you for your comments. I agree with them.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Councilor Rittman?
Yeah, I've agreed with all the comments, really, and particularly Ray Young's suggestion that we indicate our openness to any reasonable proposal. I think we've shown by the first round that we're not just going to settle for something that we don't want or is second rate, or we think is anyway, and we want something good. But I don't have any bias toward or against recreation or hotels or businesses. We just want something that'll work for Troutdale. So I'm in favor of us doing a RFQ and making it as open as we can get it.
Mr. Ray Young?
Just to add one more point, and Ed, if you want to add some more to this, please do try to remember, this is not like putting out a bid for a government contract where we are bound to accept the lowest bidder or to accept any bid whatsoever. Whatever we bring in, you're free to reject all of them. There is no contractual obligation that we have to select anybody. So the decision will still lie with the representatives of the city, whatever is proposed.
It is a request for proposals. So what the city is saying, hey, make some proposals. Tell us what you think. And, you know, there are some guideposts in there, but they're not hard. And they can be varied from. So, yeah, that's really what it is it's the last time that this was done, the economy was changing, interest rates are going up, real estate development was getting harder and harder. So it is the time to go back out to the market and see what kinds of proposals can be brought in. It's still not easy to get even residential development, but let's see what's out there. See what the next round of economic development brings.
Okay. So it sounds like that we appreciate the work you all have done. But it seems like there is some apprehension as to maybe not voting on it tonight, but maybe the words and the direction that's inside this RFQ going out for the second time. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like we're looking for more of a broad vision to be put into this instead of something that's more geared towards what's in there right now. It sounds like opening it up, or at least putting language in there saying that we're open to more broad developments, open to more broad ideas, with still the work that TCAB has done as a jumping off point. I don't know. I mean, what Ray and what Ed have said is true. It's a request for, is this RFP or RFQ? RFQ for qualifications. It's just putting it out there and putting our flag up in the air and looking for developers to come and say, hey, I'd be interested in putting something together for you all to look at and decide if this is with your vision. They can put whatever they want up. And you have the right to accept or to not. So I don't know if this is something that we need to send off until the next council meeting, or if this is something we can move forward right now, knowing that you all have the ability in the future to decide what does or what doesn't go inside that property or that development. We're not under a clock other than the one we put on ourselves because we have money out there that we need to get back. So I guess what I'm saying is, if you're more comfortable giving staff direction with pushing this forward until the next council meeting with some other type of language inside there, a more broad approach, we can do that tonight and give them some sort of direction moving forward. If not, this is a motion, and we can also see how the vote goes.
I didn't see any language that was limiting in the proposal.
I didn't necessarily either.
Yeah, so, I mean, I could approve it the way it is. If councilors think there's some words that should be added or taken out, fine, I'm quite willing to listen. But this, if we're gonna ask developers to give us the best you've got, and we're open to anything, basically, that will enhance our city, I don't have any problem with the way it's in the packet myself. So, does anybody?
Either do I. Mr. Ray Young.
All I wanted to note is that the motion should be structured such that the staff could go back and modify the RFQ as presented to comport with the direction that we got tonight. And we could just send it out just from that as part of the motion.
Okay, so what he said was, we can make a motion, inside the motion, direct staff to. Is that that doesn't seem like the cleanest way to do it, right? In my opinion.
Mayor, you're in charge, Mayor. Well, staff will follow your lead, the council.
If we're looking to, if the council, or I'm sorry, if the agency is looking to make changes to the RFQ, I feel like we need to give staff a clear direction as to what that is. If we're fine with the way it is, knowing that the next agency and the next council is going to be the ones to make the decision as to what goes or what doesn't, then we can move forward with the motion as is. But I'd like it to be more concrete than that, than just make it broad. That doesn't give, that's no direction in my opinion. Margaret?
Can I make a suggestion?
Please do.
If you would like us to add something to it, where I can imagine us adding it, is in submission requirements, we have really clear, like, these are the elements of your submission that we would like to see. We could put a disclaimer in there that says.
What page is that, really quick? Sorry.
Page 24.
24.
And it goes on for a couple of pages. But we could put something either in the beginning or end of that says that the city will accept proposals for things that, we can figure out a way of wording it that basically says we will accept proposals and review them, even if they don't necessarily meet the laid out vision as described in this document. Basically stating that we would still present them to you all, and they could submit whatever they wanted. This is how we would like them to submit it, but we would review other proposals. So I can see us adding something to that section. I could also, there's another section that I said that I could see us adding to. I don't really remember where the other section was that I was gonna say, but I can imagine us adding something there if you would like us to add something.
I'm thinking the submission requirements are very, very broad, the way they're set out, starting on page 24. I mean, we're not too harsh in, it has to be on certain size paper or something, how many pages.
It did say how many pages, we took it out. We actually had that conversation.
It's basically saying we're seeking a vision for the site.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm okay with the way it is. I don't think it needs, while I endorse Ray's idea, for instance, of saying we're open to anything, basically, I think it does that already. So that's my feeling.
One of the other things about the submission requirements section that I think is good for us to keep in there is the sections on financial capacity and the team makeup. And I think that it's really important that if we are accepting different proposals or different ideas, that whoever is submitting those can still prove to us that they have the financial capacity to do what they're saying they're going to do. I don't think that any of us really want to receive applications that are for broad pie in the sky dreams that they can't financially do. We want these to be real things that we can turn around and go into the deal terms with. So we want to make sure that everyone is submitting, is putting the highest level of effort and commitment behind their applications. So I do think it's really important for us to keep those standards and not change those.
I agree.
Real quick,
Yep.
I understand that I am probably semi in the minority. I just want to because when I'm reading through this, and I don't disagree that this is asking for vision and it's broad, When I like come down here as a vision and plan for the site, it's like, what types of housing do you think are most feasible at this location? Like that, I look at this and I feel like if I were to read through this, they're looking for a development, which is a land development of like buildings and hotel, like whatever. That's how I read this. And alls I'm asking for is somewhere in there, it just says we are not only open to like housing development or whatever, but also parks, facilities, because up above, under, blah, blah, blah. It's, under the, it's like zone 4, it does say like a major like entertainment something. So that like it's within the ability for someone to come in here, but I really, as I read through this, we're looking for housing and businesses and a hotel and like surrounded by like big open kind of green space where people can kind of frolic and play around, but it's more of a development. It's not just, that's what we're limiting it to. And that's all. I just don't want to limit it to that. You can tell me like, I fully 100% am behind you. If you can tell me that like, yes, that's in there, it's open for someone to do that, and it's well within their reason that they would read through this and be able to see that vision too, then I'm fine to move forward.
Well,
So really quick, on page 25, under the vision and plan for the site, there's a second bullet point that says, what additional opportunities do you see at this location that may not be captured in the town center plan or Confluence action plan? New ideas welcome.
Yeah.
It is literally the second bullet point for the visions and plan for the site. That, to me, says that. That, to me, stands out. What I was gonna suggest is adding inside that a bullet point that says, give examples of green spaces or complexes or sport facilities that you've developed. It could be added into that, underneath or above that specific bullet point. Would that be?
Yeah, because there's over here, it says just what experience you have developing hotel hospitality uses, and then there's the housing. So none of the examples lead me to believe that like what you're really looking for is anything. It's kind of to this building part. So again, that's.
So again, under the vision and plan for the site, the subsequent bullet points, what types of housing do you think are most feasible? Describe how you would create an efficient parking plan. Describe the business or identify the potential anchor tenants. Describe your approach to maximizing sustainable and green features. Inside that, again, we could put a bullet point that just says, describe previous developments with parks and green spaces with recreational facilities.
yeah, and one of the things that I want to note is that with Capstone's proposal, one of the things that the Town Center Advisory Board really gravitated towards was the proposed gathering space that they had central to that site. It was this flexible sort of a market space.
Yep.
And one of the things that I think that it's important, if someone proposes that we understand who they are imagining paying for that and maintaining that.
Right, and that's
That
the
was one of the
downside
things
to
that was
all this.
never clear with the town or with the Capstone proposal. Like it showed the green space on there, but one of the things that they didn't necessarily do was state the city's going to pay for this and the city is going to maintain it. So I think that people can propose those things, but one of the things that we'll want to be sure that we are clear on is it going to be our obligation to build and maintain those facilities, or is that something that they're proposing that they build and maintain? And what does that mean for us? Because we don't have examples of private parks within the city,
Right.
what those look like. And so it just opens up a whole other
Yeah.
level of questions that I think that we can definitely add some bullets into this as Mayor Lauer is suggesting, and try to capture that a little bit better for you all. But I think we do want to be careful and cognizant that just because something is proposed doesn't mean that they will necessarily
Right.
propose paying for it.
Right, exactly. Ed?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're not at the beginning of this process, and there are limitations on what can be accepted off the top. The biggest one is what's in the originally adopted and modified after 10 years, the Urban Renewal Plan. It has features to it that any proposal have to satisfy, or else the city has to go back and modify the Urban Renewal Plan. And that's a fairly involved process, and it's required by Oregon statutes. So we can't simply ignore the Urban Renewal Plan. The same thing with the existing zoning is there, and the city can modify it. So if you're going to ask for things, you might say in that paragraph that you pointed out, Mr. Mayor, what additional opportunities do you see at this location that may not be captured in the town center plan, Confluence action plan, the urban renewal plan, or zoning? What changes would you plan or would you request? That opens them up. It tells what's there, but it also says, tell us what changes you would want to make, if you want to make changes. That way, everybody has to think about it a little bit. Well, we can't just go out and put a nuclear power plant there because somebody thinks it's a great idea, for example. Okay, that's all of it. We're in what are we in, about 15 years into this process, and there are written documents that we're bound by, but we can change. That's my really only point there.
And if any of you are looking for that document, it is on the Confluence's website. So if you go to the confluence.info, under resources, and then under documents and reports, it's titled Troutdale Riverfront Renewal Plan. And that was originally adopted in 2006 and has been modified, looks like 4 times in the time since. But the last time it was modified was 2017.
Counselor Caswell?
Yeah, I mean, I would be in favor of this as written, and also I'd be open to what Ed, what you just said too. Would I be able to make a motion to approve this as written with like a nod to everything that you said just now, Ed?
So long as the 2 authors of this can carry that out, sure. And this is taped, so you can go back and listen to what I said. So
I just made a mental note of the time so that I could remember how to.
Sarah was note taking like crazy, so.
How would I say that then?
So you would say that you would move, and I need to pull up on my other laptop the motion as it's currently written. Where is it? Right there. It says a motion to approve the request for qualifications RFQ for the Confluence at Troutdale, incorporating the amendments discussed by the city attorney a couple minutes ago.
Yes, what you said. I make a motion because I can't remember it and it's not right in front of me right now. I'm making a motion for that.
Making a motion for that.
Second.
All right, thank you, Counselor White. Any other discussion before we vote? Counselor White?
I just want to make sure it makes sense to you of what I'm asking, just make it a little bit more feasible for someone to read through this and recognize that that would be potentially an option.
He's not asking about the motion. He's just asking your opinion if what he's saying falls in line with this motion, in your opinion.
It makes sense to you, that you can get it in there and.
Wait, sorry, what?
I'm just asking you to make that, it makes sense to you of what I'm asking to have put into the RFQ. In
It's not
terms of
going to be
like
put in.
identifying that there are different options besides just housing, you know. And that
Yes.
you can accomplish that task and it makes sense to you, that's all I'm asking.
Yes, but I don't think that's the motion
That's
that
not the
Allison
motion.
made. So I think the motion that Allison made was for the changes Ed had proposed, but not necessarily all of the
Correct.
changes that have been discussed tonight.
Correct.
Okay.
And that was seconded.
Okay.
Well, question about it then, does the motion that Allison made include a requirement for a certain amount of housing? It didn't seem to
No,
me.
it didn't include
Or-
any detail.
Or a prohibition on doing some other kind of economic activity like sports fields or something.
No,
I didn't think it did either.
nope.
So neither of those are either required or prohibited. Okay,
What it included was adding language to if something is to be changed, if they're coming with a plan other than what's outlined in the TCAB and in the other documents that Ed stated, what other zoning are they proposed to change to ask for those changes? So no limitations, if anything.
and I think that's allowed under this too.
Yeah.
That a developer could propose that it needs to
Have a zoning
include this
amendment.
kind of zoning or that.
Yes, and that's what the change was, what we vote, what was the motion and what was seconded.
Okay.
Point of, I have a question on my second. I thought she was making the motion to approve it as written, is what I heard.
No. So it's still motioned and seconded. So
Oh, I'm sorry.
that's okay. So Ed, Sarah, can you read back to the best of your ability what was stated? So there's a little bit more clear. Oh, Erica,
Yes.
please, thank you.
All right, so if you turn to page 25, the second bullet on the right-hand column, it says, what additional opportunities, and I'm gonna read it as modified.
Yes, please do.
Okay, so what additional opportunities do you see at this location that may not be captured in the Troutdale Community Development Code, in the Town Center Plan, in the Confluence Action Plan, and the Urban Renewal Plan? New ideas welcomed.
And then Ed also added language as to, yeah, what zoning changes would you request for this new plan? Do you have something that's,
Yeah,
Yeah, please, Sarah.
had typed up, you might say, what additional opportunities do you see that might not be captured in all of the plans or zoning?
Yeah, he had said zoning, Erica said Troutdale
Development
Development
Code.
Code, they're one and the same.
one and the
so-
same, yeah.
Okay, I misheard. I'm having trouble hearing. So I think I'm going to withdraw my second.
What do you want, Glenn?
Let's see, hang on one second. So, Ed, let me ask you a question and then I'll get to Counselor Caswell. It was motioned and seconded. Through a point of order, Counselor White wants to withdraw his second. Can we have, even though it was seconded, can Counselor Caswell amend, or can someone friendly amend her motion and see if that sticks?
Yes, if the second is withdrawn, then the original motion is there. And not having been seconded, Councilor Caswell Brown can modify it until it's seconded, or someone can propose a friendly amendment to it. Either could happen.
Okay. So Counselor White, you withdrew your second, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, Counselor Caswell.
Yeah, Counselor White, could you propose a friendly amendment to it then?
I would say this, I would say, I would approve it as written. So I think like Councilor Rittma said, it's very broad. And maybe just put a note that we would entertain any proposal, but I would say that it has to go back to TCAP before we changed any of the parameters that were listed there, because TCAP worked hard on that, and they were trying to keep the spirit of the original plan that was promised to Troutdale citizens. So that's my concern, but I don't want to be till if some great proposal comes along, of course we want to hear it, but I think it needs to be vetted through channels. It just can't be automatically okay. And I understand what Ed said, but I am having trouble hearing that. My connection's really poor on my end. Hopefully you guys can hear me well, but I just couldn't quite hear everything Ed said. And when you guys reiterated it, it was still difficult to hear.
Yeah, no, you're coming across fine.
Okay, good.
Counselor Caswell, you have a choice.
I mean, sure. I'll make a motion with the friendly amendment added, I suppose then. Glenn, if that sounds like that would be
Yeah,
what you would want for a second, right?
yeah, I'll second that.
Okay.
So, Counselor White, go ahead and restate what your friendly amendment was, please, for the record.
That we would approve the RFP as written, but and state that if we get a proposal, any proposal that's viable, that it would go back to TCAP for review before it came back to council. Just want to keep them in the loop. That's the team that's been working on this. A lot of them have been working on it since the start of the whole, when we had the River Renewal team that went door to door and handed out flyers and got the voters to approve this whole thing that started it. So I want to keep that intact, the original vision. But you know, if we had someone that wants to do a campus down there that was going to bring a lot of good jobs to Troutdale, something like that, I think we need to be open-minded to that sort of a possibility. And the recreation's already there. It's being built as we speak. That trail is going to be quite an attraction and quite a benefit for the whole region. And I know the region's excited about it too. So I know that we also have to honor what was promised. So that's my goal in my friendly amendment. Sorry for being so long-winded.
Okay. We have a motion and a second.
Ready?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, and just to be clear, then it's a motion to accept the RFQ as set out in the packet with the stipulation that any reasonable proposal that comes through goes back to the committee before it comes to council.
Correct.
Is that essentially what it is? All right,
That
that's okay.
sounds like what he had stated, and you guys hadn't necessarily decided the process. We had decided the process last time. But it hadn't been a discussion of what the process for review would be yet,
Yeah.
so.
That sounds like a good one.
Okay. Let's go.
Director Rittma,
Yes.
Director Caswell,
Yes.
Director One,
No.
Chair Lauer,
No.
Director White,
Yes.
Director Wittrin,
No.
Director Glantz,
Yes.
passes.
All right, passes, 4-3. Okay, thank you very much. Took a lot longer than I thought.
Well, it's been taking
A lot longer
a
than
lot
tonight.
longer than we thought.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to, actually, let's adjourn this meeting. I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Urban Renewal Agency is adjourned. We're calling back to order the regular city council meeting. We're gonna move on to agenda item number 6, public hearing and ordinance adopting text amendments to chapters 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and appendix A of the Troutdale Development Code. Erica Palmer and Dakota Meyer.
Thank you, Mayor Lauer. Thank you, council. I will pull up my presentation. Alrighty. Thank you again. My name is Dakota Meyer. I'm the Associate Planner with the City of Troutdale. I'm joined here with our Community Development Director, Erica Palmer. Tonight I'll be presenting the staff report for a proposed text amendment to the entirety of the code, also known as an omnibus, for the Troutdale Development Code under case file 75-16. The request is initiated by the city, and the city is the the overall applicant. We are proposing to update several chapters of the Troutdale Development Code to bring clarity and uniformity while correcting Scrivener errors made during previous code amendments. Amendments are, a couple of the amendments, just a brief overview, and I'll go into deeper detail, are replacing sections that were inadvertently removed during previous code amendments, updating definitions, updating referencing numbers, and then basically edits. The next slides are a little text heavy, so bear with me. This is an overview of what's going on in each of the chapters. So in chapter 1, 1.020, we are updating existing definitions and adding new definitions to the list. Those two new definitions are for EV charging and gyms. In chapter 3, basically all of the use tables, but section 3.20 or 220, adding gym as a use to the use table for the MU1, MU2, and MU3 zones. In section 3.320, adding gym as a use to the use table for CC and GC zones, along with special standards for entertainment facilities for major. And then in section 3.420, adding gym as a use in the use tables for the IP, LI, and GI zones. Chapter 4 is fixing Scrivener's errors by adding tables that were inadvertently removed to sections 3.230, section 4.315 through 4.318, updating reference numbers to improve navigation. Let's continue. That's a little bit wordy. In this section, we will be in chapter 5, fixing Scrivener's errors by adding tables that were inadvertently removed to sections 5.040 and 5.220. Chapter 6, updating reference numbers to improve navigation. And then chapter 7, 8, and 9, and then appendix A are general uniformity edits. Those uniformity edits are spelling out numbers that we have them kind of mixed right now throughout the code, so we're bringing uniformity to the entirety of the code, as well as fixing referencing numbers. For example, chapter 11 was removed during a previous code amendment, but our code still references chapter 11. So we're updating out the proc where that chapter was moved to the code. Here's kind of a deeper look. This is what you've seen in your packet. So here's the definition for EV charging, and then as well as the gym definition. And on the side, as you can see, where over on this side here, how it's been placed in the use tables under recreation facilities active. In the use tables, we added a stipulation of 5,000 square feet. So 5,000 square, up to 5,000 square feet, and then 5,000 square feet and above. In chapters 4 and 5, here's an example of some of the tables that were inadvertently removed. So for sections 4.316 or 3.415 through 4.318, those entire sections were removed inadvertently, so we're bringing them back into the code to bring it up to date with what our current code is. As well as replacing figures 5.040A and 5.040B in our clear vision for our clear vision section. Those are figures that show how to measure the clear vision triangle that were inadvertently removed, as well as bringing back the table for mobile food vendor use and operations under 5.200. And then Appendix A, there were just a couple of blanks, so we're fixing those. For example, signage was not referenced to our sign code, our sign code section, so we're updating that, as well as this is an example of how Chapter 11 was referenced within Appendix A, and we have to bring it to where it's currently referenced within the code. These are just the general uniformity edits. Also, you'll see spelling out the numbers. We did receive one comment while we sent out for comments to DLCD and Metro. Metro submitted a comment to ensure the proposed amendment will comply with the Title IV, the Urban Growth Management Functional Plan. Their comment was regarding the newly added gym use within the industrial zoned areas, specifically within the RISA section, which is the regionally significant industrial areas. You'll see on the map here, that is the gray area. So basically the airport. They request that we add specific language to the code to specify that gyms are permitted in the area, just not within the areas designated RISA on the Metro 2040 growth map.
Can't have a gym at the airport.
Can't have a gym at the airport.
Check.
City staff, along with working with the Planning Commission, has added these standards to 3.420 for the use table within the industrial, stating that it's permitted. However, it does not apply to the RISA areas. This is a list of the proposed findings that both Planning Commission and Council use for approval. I'll just read through them real quickly. The proposed changes to the Development Code does not conflict with applicable comprehensive land use plan goals or policies. The proposed changes is consistent with the applicable statewide planning goals. The proposed change is consistent with the applicable provisions of the Metro Code. Public need is best satisfied by this particular change, and the change will not adversely affect the health, safety, and welfare of the community. Staff and the Planning Commission propose that each of these criteria have been met. Here's the procedure we will use to consider the request for this Type 4 land use application. Planning Commission's authority is to make a formal recommendation to Council at the Planning Commission hearing on October 30th. The Planning Commission voted 6 yeas to 1 nay in favor to recommend the approval to City Council. City Council is the decision-making entity. Notice of the application was provided as per code. The action City Council is asked to take is to consider the Planning Commission's recommendation, which is approval of the proposed code amendments at 2 public hearings. First hearing is tonight for the introduction on November 12th, and then the second hearing is December 10th for adoption. At the December 10th meeting, the City Council is asked to either confirm, amend, or revise Planning Commission's recommendation, enact or defeat all or part of the ordinance, remand some or all of the proposal back to Planning Commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Dakota. All right, any comments or questions from council? Councilor Rittman.
And gyms seem to come up quite often in these changes, and was there something driving that?
Yes, actually, we had, myself and the assistant planner both had two very similar type of conditional uses that came through several months ago. Actually, I think it was last year. And the question came about is why don't we have a definition specific for gyms? One of them was the pickleball facility that's up off of Troutdale Road. And another one is called Checkmat, which is a jujitsu gym that went in down at the outlet malls. And the reason why a lot of the discussion during both of those planning commission hearings were why don't we have a definition? So some of them seem like no-brainers, others don't. And that's where we kind of really started working with planning commission after that, along with planning commission working on an overarching look at the code to come up with a definition and where we should put it. And that's also where the 5,000 square feet came in as well. For some areas, we don't want large because there's large scale variety of scales in gyms. You have some that are much smaller compared to ones that are much larger. LA Fitness or like LA Fitness is a good example for a large gym compared to like a Stat Fitness, which is much smaller, typically inside of an outlet mall or a strip mall type thing. So that's where we came up. That's where this discussion initially came with, where we do need that. We don't have it. And that also gave us a deeper dive into all of our definitions to update the language to bring it up to date with current terminology as well.
And in the examples of the pickleball court and the jiu-jitsu gym, I guess, would it have simplified the application process by having a definition? And the applicants were struggling with the fact that we didn't have a definition.
It's not so much the definition itself, it's the use. And we thought it would be best to have a definition along with the use. A lot of what we do in planning is there's a lot of gray area, and that's what's good. So we can kind of read and then read between the lines and help people to have an approved application the best we possibly can. And in the case of both those gyms, for the pickleball facility, they're both conditional uses. The pickleball facility was a larger facility, but it was in an area that met all the parking. It was pretty much a no-brainer, really easy, where the Checkmat was much smaller, but it was going through the exact same process as a larger facility. And so that seemed a bit counterproductive to have something that should be pretty simple. Doesn't have nearly the same amount of parking requirements, doesn't have nearly the same amount of trips generated to go through a similar process as a larger facility. And so having the definition in there rather than just under recreation, active recreation, because our active recreation definition right now is quite broad, and it talks more about what's the word I'm looking for? Sports complexes, things of that nature, compared to a gym is not so much a sports complex, but it could. Larger facilities do have basketball courts and swimming pools and things of that nature. Where smaller gyms, they don't offer those same types of amenities, where they should be a little bit easier to go into areas since they're not having that same kind of trip generation. And so that's why we also decided to have that 5,000 square feet, where smaller gyms, that could also be considered a Pilates studio. It could be a yoga studio. And myself and the assistant planner, we both kind of grappled on this a little bit, discussing with the applicants prior to them submitting of, is this considered a personal service because it's hands-on, similar to a haircut? Or is this actually more of an active recreation? And we both agree that this is more of an active recreation, so that's what a gym would be. So now having a gym, having it placed in the use table directly underneath the active recreation, similar to how we have several others listed out, different types of uses listed out over one overarching use, was a good way to move forward.
Good. All right, thank you.
Councilor Glantz.
I have a question on this. I saw that the marijuana initiative went down in Troutdale. Did we also get all the tables and all of that corrected in any of the earlier development codes? That's all
Yeah.
fixed?
So that was actually one of the very first development code amendments that I had when I came here with the city. So all of that is up to date, even with the current election. So everything's up to date there. What we noticed, myself and Nick, the assistant planner, is when we got here, looking through the code, we noticed that for specifically within our VECO standards, our vegetation corridor and slope district standards, we had calls about how do you measure that? And we're looking through the code and it's not there. So we look in the old code and it's there. And we read through all the old code amendments and it wasn't supposed to be removed. So that's a lot. That's why this is an omnibus. Getting a chance, we had a folder that we created called Bad Code Here, where everything that we noticed over the year, our first year here, we would put in there to then do one large code amendment to fix everything. Same when we had calls regarding our food cart, food truck, food kiosk, the table's just missing. And you also notice that where our historic landmarks are missing, the table of our historic landmarks, our code references, but the table was just inadvertently removed. And this is pretty common with how our code is written and updated. It's all done by the planners, by hand. They have to go through, make sure everything's added, and then they convert it, then combine it into one PDF, and then we update it or upload it to the website. We're currently working on updating that so we don't have to do that, so these kinds of errors won't be as regular, or as frequent, I should say. So that we are really working on being very diligent out of the ones that we're doing now, with the hopes that we won't have these types of Scrivener's errors moving forward. So really, while this is updating the code, it's also bringing a lot of things that were in the code that were supposed to be in the code back into the most current version of the code.
Excellent, thank you.
All right, any other comments or questions from council before we open it up for the public hearing? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and open up the public hearing. Public hearing is now open for agenda item number 6, an ordinance adopting text amendments to chapters 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and appendix A of the Troutdale Development Code. If you are on Zoom, wish to make public comment, go ahead and unmute yourself and state your name and city of residence for the record, please, and thank you. All right, anybody in council chambers tonight? I love the drama. Every time. Slowly stand up from the back.
I was trying to decide if I want to come up here or not. Good evening, Mayor Lauer, City Councilors, Tiani Stephenson, Troutdale resident, member of the Planning Commission. Your Planning Commission started working on this probably like in March, that be right? January. Was it January? Okay. So we worked on this for the better part of a year and had a number of public meetings, work sessions regarding this. Took quite a bit of public comment, and the interesting thing with development code is every time you go through it, you find something that you missed the last time you went through it. And so, yeah, this is an omnibus, and I've already seen things that I thought we would have had in here, but we don't. And so I will tell you that in some point in the future, there'll be a short bus coming. Probably with more of these, and that'll probably continue as time goes on. But this is our best shot at it, and I will say, once you guys canceled your second meeting in November, we were really out of the shotgun to get it here for you for the end of the year. And that was kind of also one of our goals. Any questions?
What was the issue with the one nay?
The one nay was primarily because of some parking amendments that will be coming due to CFEC. And they're not going into effect until July. And we didn't want to do all of those updates
Now,
until we had to,
Okay.
because parking's such an issue with the community.
makes sense.
And I believe that was the nay.
I can also speak to that a little bit. That's correct, that was the nay. That is going to be a fairly large and complex code amendment. Since this is a large code amendment with very small little details, there's not a lot of substance change. Adding that section to this would make it a very heavy code amendment, where it's easier to read and easier for staff, and then easier for everybody involved to do it as its own separate code amendment. That way we're focusing on one chapter rather than the entirety of the code. So it's just, in my experience, doing certain code amendments, that was one of the first things, when I started here, there was a code amendment that was adding a bunch. We opted to separate them out and we had 2 back-to-back, and that was easier for readability and to understand what was being proposed, than wrap it all into one, because then I feel like it gets a little convoluted and a little messy. And with CFAC being a hot topic, and it is something that we have to do by July, that it'll be better if we have it as a single code amendment.
Makes sense.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else wishes to make comment? All right, I'm going to close the public hearing. Any other discussion? All right.
I'll just say it's a lot of work, and I applaud them for doing it.
I don't think it's going to be one of those jobs that'll ever end.
No, in my experience, usually a city does an omnibus once a year,
Yeah, so,
because you always find something.
yep. Great, thank you very much. We're going to move on to agenda item number 7. A discussion on 4-hour RV parking limitation rule. Counselor One, this is your item. Ray Young, did you want to introduce it?
Oh, no, that's fine. I'm sure Counselor One will do just fine, because I gave him a little memo, so we know the issue.
All right, thank you.
This is my first time bringing something forward, so I'm pretty excited. This was brought to my attention by a neighbor of mine, and then 2 neighbors of my parents who live in Troutdale also. And I will say that when I came on council 2 years ago, this was a discussion I'd had with them in the previous 6 months. And they have not had any issues with basically getting yelled at for having their RV in front of their house recently, mainly over the last couple of years. And nobody's come by to tell them they have to move. So this started back in 2020 with my dad's neighbor during COVID. He brought his RV home because obviously COVID was tough for everybody, to have his mother live with them in the trailer. And so he parked it out in front of the house. And quickly code enforcement came by and told me he could not do that. And he was like, okay, well, she needs to live there. Like, we're in tough times. What do I do? And he said, you just can't have it on the street. So it was not small enough to put in his driveway. So what he ended up doing was putting it in his front yard, which seemed counterintuitive to me of what we were trying to really do. And so once they told him that it was in his front yard, that was fine. My neighbor lives next door to me. They have a large RV or trailer, basically, and they like to basically bring it home the night before. They'll pack things over the night and potentially the next day to leave either 24 or 30 hours later. And he got a few years ago multiple citations, or he got yelled at, as he likes to call it, for having it there longer than 4 hours. His question was like, what am I supposed to do? I got to bring it here. I can't store it here. I don't store it here. Can I, like, there's got to be something different for people that are responsible. And I feel like the spirit of this rule ordinance was to prevent people from just parking their RVs all over the place and potentially living in them. And I understand that. I think for responsible people that want to like prep, bring their RV home, and then they go on their trip, they bring it, they take everything out, and then take it back to where it's supposed to go, or park it on their own property that is in the appropriate place. I feel pretty strongly like we should offer those responsible people another option rather than having to get told like you only have 4 hours to get all your stuff in and out, and if you don't, you're going to get a ticket. And so I wanted to just bring it forward to this group because there was probably discussion at some point when I was not here about why this is 4 hours and nothing longer. And I always believe that you should have a solution for the issue. So my solution would be to increase this to 24 hours in front of your house. And if that is something that was discussed and it's like that's an absolute no, for people that want to do this, they can go and get a permit. So the city knows who they are, they're responsible. They can go get a permit that would allow them to have it in front of their house for 24 hours or 36 hours, whatever we would say. And that permit would be free to them. It's just something that they're doing and acknowledging they're trying to participate and be a good member of a good citizen of our city. So again, I don't have a RV. I don't have a trailer that I want to park in front of my house. This is from my neighbors. And really my main thing is my dad's neighbor is awesome and he's a great neighbor for my parents as they get older. I trust him, but he parked it in his front yard and that was considered okay. And I'm like, that's counterintuitive. That's a horrible look for the neighborhood as a whole in my eyes. Let him park it out front on the street. Let him do that for the 24 hours and then he can go on his trip and come back home. So, that's pretty much all I got.
Yeah, so I remember when this came up in front of us and it was more so as a response to zombie RVs that were plaguing all over Multnomah County and we didn't want it to creep its way into Troutdale and we wanted to have control over when we saw RVs parked in the right of way, RVs parked in front of houses that were hooked to water, that were hooked to power and all of that. I know that it wasn't necessarily, I didn't feel like it was a knee-jerk reaction. I feel like we discussed it at length and we came up to that. I do remember, and it is stated in the city code that you can get, and the city manager can issue a permit for parking. And then Ray, if you wouldn't mind refreshing my memory, but I don't remember us charging for that. Am I wrong? I can't remember.
I don't believe I've ever charged for that. I've had maybe 2 requests in the last 2 or 3 years, not many, but I don't believe we charge anybody for that.
Yeah, I didn't
If
think
it is, it's minor, like $25 or less.
Yeah.
But I don't think, yeah.
No, go ahead, please.
No, I don't think we do. I don't remember that being an issue.
Yeah, it says in Municipal Code 10.08.060, overnight special and guest parking permits. City manager or the manager's designee may issue overnight parking permits for public parking lots, special parking permits, and guest permits. Overnight parking permits shall be issued on an annual basis with each permit expiring on December 31st of a particular year. That seems to be more parking. I was trying to find out if we spelled it out.
I think when I was reading through that, it seemed to me to pertain more to the downtown area and where you had limited parking, like for instance, the parking lot up here is closed at night and you could get a special permit to park there overnight, is how I read it. I could totally be wrong and I'm willing to accept that.
No, I think, but you bring up a good point that it was a reaction to what was happening around us, and it wasn't necessarily, in my opinion, I'm not speaking for the council, in my opinion, it wasn't necessarily a reaction that was supposed to be friendly. It was supposed to be more stern, that we're not going to tolerate any of this in Troutdale as Portland and west of us is tolerating. But that's my opinion. That's not the opinion of council. Ray?
No, I was just going to add, Mayor, that there's a different section of the ordinance that gives the city manager the ability to grant, I believe it's a 2-week permit to be able to park an RV for people who visitors who come from out of town, need to park their RV. And that's what I was talking about only a couple of times, last couple of years, anybody asked for one of those. And as long as it seems it's not going to endanger safety near an intersection or something like that, I've granted those permits. But that's when somebody's staying there in them from out of town.
Yes. I was trying to read through this really quickly and I should have read through it earlier and I didn't.
Can I ask Ray a question?
Yeah, please.
Ray, if that is the case, why would not our code enforcement officer, when he's talking to the public, add that as a suggestion to go down a path?
Well, I think probably because the intent of that ordinance was for people who were going to be living in the RV as they were visiting Troutdale residents. It wasn't for storage of Troutdale residents and their RVs. And there's also a difference between parking it on a right-of-way, which is a city street, versus parking in someone's driveway. Usually if someone's going to, because you're not supposed to park your RVs, I believe, right in front of your house on your own property. But it was a way to allow people to, like I said, I'm just doing this from memory. I don't remember what the exact wording of the ordinance is.
Yeah, it says, where am I at? I am on, still 10.08.060 overnight special and guest parking permits, section D. Special and guest parking permits shall not exceed a total period of 2 weeks within any 4-week period unless extended by the city manager's discretion. It does above call out specific locations that are prohibited from this, such as on-street parking on historically Columbia River Highway between 257th and Kibling, on-street parking on South Buxton Road, Southeast Dora, and basically our downtown core. It just calls out that it's not allowed there, even with a permit. So reading through this, I would read it as it's allowed everywhere else. That's not specifically called out. I guess this would, in my opinion, it would pertain to everywhere else. And it's, again, my opinion, that it's more spelled out that this is for residential uses. Temporary or special guest parking or stuff like that. I remember we talked about it in the off chance that someone was having family come and visit, that they're bringing, I mean, my parents are RVers. They travel all around and they park it at my sister's house. My dad being a staunch rule follower, he gets his permit every time he comes and stays in front of my sister's house. But I remember us putting something like that in there for that exact scenario where people are visiting, people need to stay out front, people need to be in their trailer for, but inside that it's no longer than 2 weeks in a 4-week period, so they could come back and do all that. Mr. Ray Young.
Yeah, it's just, we're kind of dealing with two situations. The one that Counselor One's neighbor had, which is they just want to bring it home early and have it for 12 or 16 hours to load up. It's not really practical for them to want to do the extra effort to come into the office to try to get a permit for that kind of use. And they may be doing it on a Friday night, and by Saturday afternoon, they're gone. So you don't enforce it. The intent of the 2 weeks was for people who are planning ahead, such as your father and you, and we go, oh, all right, I'm gonna have somebody stay, and we'll want them to park in front of my house. And like I said, as long as it's not near the intersection where it's gonna cause a danger, I'm pretty free about giving those away. So I guess if somebody wanted to have their RV for the weekend to load it up or unload it, they could ask me beforehand for a pass and I'd probably give it to them.
I think I would say I'm fine with, if that is the option, that they can ask the city manager or whoever it would be for a permit to do it for the period of time that they need. Or I guess my other thing would be for citizens who want to come in and out, who want to be mindful of the rules, that they maybe can get a permit once a year that allows them to do that. You know,
just re-up it.
I will say, like, over the last 2 years, that none of my parents' neighbor has not had any issues. I don't know if code compliance is doing any sweeps. I would say they're not, because I've had a car in my street that I just had to report that was there for over 2 months straight, didn't move. So I don't know if that's really patrolling our neighborhoods is really happening at this point with code compliance. It doesn't seem like it is. So maybe it's sort of a moot point, but for the people that brought it to my attention that want to follow the rules, that want to at least be like, hey, yeah, I'm happy to get a permit to let me do this. I just wanted to bring it forward to us, just to say, like, should we do something about this? Is what's there available okay, or can we, change it a little bit to give people the freedom over the course of the year to come and go with the permit, not have to do it every single time?
Yeah, and Ray, correct me if I'm wrong, but code enforcement, they are activated by complaints, not by Joe Storgy going out and actively looking for violations. He responds to complaints. So if someone got a visit from him, it's because someone complained about it, is my interpretation of our position, Troutdale's position.
One, yes, that is the primary driver of all code compliance officer work, except where there may be a danger involved, a dangerous situation, and then we self-report on those. And the third thing I was going to say, not directly related to that, but the process for getting a permit is very simple. Send me an email. I send an email back saying, hey, give me a description of the RV, give me the license number, tell me exactly where you want to put it for how long. If it looks reasonable, I send back an email, says, here's your permit, my email, and I CC Joe Storgy, our code compliance officer. That's as simple as the process is.
So they could do it from their home.
Yeah.
And Ray, I just want to I feel like it's pretty important that if they want to do it once per year, that should be acceptable as opposed to each individual time. Is that something that we could do now without changing or voting or doing anything, or would we need to change potentially?
I'm more than happy to issue that permit for an annual perpetual until it's revoked, because I'd only revoke it if there was some problem from the neighbors, and then we'd have to figure that out. So as long as there's no complaints about it, that would not be a problem. It would be on our records that they've got authority to do that. I think at times I've actually told people to print off my email and put it in their dashboard.
Okay. I mean, I'm okay with that answer. If everybody else agrees, then we can move on.
Right, so in other words, nothing needs to be changed in the ordinance, or if Ray will handle it that way.
Yeah.
I'm happy with that too.
Yeah, Counselor Glantz?
If someone gets it once a year, is that just supposed to be for 24 hours at a time? I'm kind of a little confused on how that would work. When you give it to me for a year, what's to say I don't do 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off every 4 weeks? Or is that a different permit?
No, what I heard is that presumably somebody comes for a 2-week period at the same time every year. It kind of depends on the circumstance, what the person is asking. They say every year I come between Christmas and New Year's to visit my family, kind of park my RV there, and the dates shift, of course, based on the holidays. I'd probably grant it with those caveats and define that as a holiday. It's kind of situation dependent and whether it falls within the ordinance parameters.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from council? And this is just a discussion, so we're not actually deciding anything tonight.
No, and I'm 100% happy with this and would guide people that direction, so.
Okay, I am gonna open it up to public comment though, really quick. So public comments open right now on discussion, agenda item number 7, a discussion on 4-hour RV parking limitation rule. If you are on Zoom and wish to make public comment, go ahead and state your name and city of residence for the record, please. All right, not seeing anybody. Anybody in council chambers tonight? All right, not seeing anybody. Close public comment. No, it was a good topic. I mean, like I said, it was more of just, if I'm remembering correctly, it was more of just, you don't want Troutdale to look like what it does everywhere else.
1000%.
It was a wild time.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you for the discussion.
Yeah, thank you. Let's move on to agenda item number 8, an update from the Public Safety Services Delivery Working Group, Mr. Ray Young.
Thank you, Mayor. The Public Safety Working Group has met once since the last council meeting. And so I want to give you an update on the 2 contracts. Number 1, on the fire contract, the 3 cities, Troutdale, Wood Village, and Fairview, met earlier last week to discuss about our approach to negotiations to start with. The three cities met with the city of Gresham last week to talk about what the city of Gresham wanted. And some of you probably may have seen already that Gresham's initial salvo is that Troutdale residents should pay the exact same per capita cost for fire service as the city of Gresham citizens pay, which would substantially increase our current fire contract. The three cities have pushed back saying, well, hold it. We don't get the same fire service that the citizens of Gresham do, so why should we pay the same amount? We're hoping to get Gresham to at least accept that in theory. And then the issue is, well, what kind of discount is appropriate based on the two general things, which have been already reported in the Outlook, which is one, we historically always get a slower response time, which is not the fault of the Gresham Fire Department or its employees. It's just the nature of where the fire stations are. We usually get Troutdale for the last 2 years has been 42 seconds slower than the citizens of Gresham get. The second issue is we have no control. We have no say in their budget, their union contract, who the fire chief is, the quality, not the quality, but also the type of service they give. And so we are hoping that they're going to at least accept that, all right, you guys don't get the same fire service, so you shouldn't pay the exact same that Gresham citizens pay. So we're working on getting them to get to that point of the table. We are next meeting, the four city managers are meeting on November 25th to see where we're at with that. And the three cities are coming up with what we see as a proposal. Wood Village Accounting Office is working on kind of an analysis of what that should be. So we hope to have that, at least some parameters after the 25th of November, where we're at with that contract to report back to Public Safety Working Group. So that's where we're at. Oh, the other thing is that I know we've always talked about a fire district as a possibility in the future if the citizens approve it. The city of Troutdale, Wood Village, and Fairview hired Tiberius, which is the economic consultant, to tell us what would be the impact on property taxes and the citizens' annual fees. If we did do a fire district, that final study should be done in the next couple of weeks, and I'll have it available for the public and the council to review. The city of Gresham got their draft of their own economic study, what a fire district meant. They are tweaking it now with their consultant, and I don't know, hopefully by the end of November, theirs will be done. That will give them some idea what the impact is of a fire district. So those are also being worked on at the same time. So that's kind of where we're at with the fire right now, Mr. Mayor. Any questions or comments on that? I will say caveat, one of the concerns that we have to pay attention to is the details of the negotiations for a contract at some point have to be limited to public knowledge, since giving away our pattern and our strategies is not usually wise, and that's usually an exception to the public meeting and public records law. But we're doing everything we can to keep the citizens in the loop on what we're doing and make sure we only negotiate in a way that the council will approve. So with that caveat, any questions on the fire part of it?
Any comments or questions from council regarding fire? All right, not seeing anybody, Ray?
All right, on the contract with Multnomah County Sheriff's Office, the negotiating committee, which of course is Councilor Witcher and Councilor One, Tanny Stephenson, myself, and Ed have met and talking through all the issues. And then we got to the point of how are we going to go back to Multnomah County Sheriff? What's the at least the approach we're going to take? And because of the awkwardness of trying to do 5 people in a room from the city of Troutdale versus 4 or 5 people from the sheriff's office in the room, that's not really an effective way to negotiate details. The negotiating subcommittee agreed that myself and Ed would be their representatives to meet with the sheriff's office. And we discussed the approach that we were going to take. Ed and I met for a couple hours last week to kind of fine tune the direction we're going to take. And then this next week, his office is doing some work in preparation of that. I'm going to do some preparation next week on that. And then we're going to take back what we suggest is our approach. Again, back to, I can't really want to disclose what our approach is going to be at this point, but then we'll meet again with the negotiating committee to go over with them what Ed and I have decided is the best approach to take with the sheriff's office. and get their approval on that approach. And we're hoping to be able to put that meeting together with the sheriff's office at the 1st of December. I believe the council got my last letter to the sheriff last Friday expressing frustration with their, let's just say, lackadaisical response to our request, and hoping that they can speed things up, because there's a lot of information that they have that we really need to help us understand the service we've been getting and what we can expect in a new contract. And so I'm hoping to get some more timely responses from the sheriff's office on some critical pieces of data. And I'll just leave it at that. But we're moving forward in very good detail in terms of how we're going to go back to the sheriff's office. So that's what I have to tell you on the sheriff's contract. If there's any questions or comments, love to hear them.
Comments or questions? All right, I don't see anybody, Ray.
All right, and I would anticipate that it may be December, maybe January, but it may be a topic of a executive session somewhere down the road, as hopefully on both contracts, we start narrowing down where it looks like we're headed so that council can get direct input into that. So that may be coming in the next month or two. Okay, thanks. All I have, Mayor.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, let's move on to agenda item number 9, staff communications. Back to you, Ray.
Back to me. Okay, first of all, tomorrow we have a planning commission meeting, and the most impactful issue is going to be Mike Halstead's plans to develop the piece of property up on the top of 257th, right before you get to Cherry Park. There's a lot there that he's developing, and they've gone through a couple iterations of that, and according to the community development department, it looks pretty close to being approved by the planning commission. They just have to go through and I think tweak some more things tomorrow night. And again, as always, council is free to watch the meeting, but because you may be the appellate court, if somebody appeals from the planning commission, please try not to make any comments on the subject matter of that application. That's tomorrow night. Second of all, last weekend we had our first drop-off garbage at the transfer station in Troutdale. It went very well, not a large turnout, but it was a new event. It was an opportunity for people just to bring a bunch of trash directly to the transfer station. So we'll continue to have that every year. Number 3, this Saturday, we have our recycling event where people can bring, gosh, I believe it's like electronics, computers, hard to recycle stuff directly to the Public Works Department on Saturday, and that's been advertised. So we're looking forward. That's always had a good turnout. So we're looking forward to that this Saturday. Number 4, your next council meeting will not be until December 10th, as we usually put off the week of Thanksgiving, but you will have a half-yearly budget committee meeting on December 3rd. So plan on your invitation for meetings on December 3rd and December 10th. And on December 10th, we will be doing a goodbye to our leaving council members. So keep that in mind. It'll be important for everyone to be there so that we can honor those council members who are leaving at the end of this term. And finally, as usual, the city will be closed 2 days, November 28th and 29th, to honor the Thanksgiving holiday. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor, sir.
Thank you, sir. All right, let's move on to agenda item number 10, council communication. Councilor Wittrin.
I'll say I'm disappointed that I'm not going to be here next year, but it's been a fun ride and I appreciate everybody here on council, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Councilor Glantz.
Congratulations to the new counselors and to our new mayor-elect. And yes, sorry to see you not staying on council.
All right, Councilor Caswell.
Nothing for me, thanks.
Okay. Councilor One.
Yeah, I was gonna read what I had. So, guess not a good evening anymore. We're late evening, everyone. So I just want to take a moment to thank everyone from supporters to volunteers, friends, and neighbors who believed in my vision for Troutdale. Though the results did not go our way, I'm deeply proud of the campaign we ran and the conversations we sparked about Troutdale's future. I congratulate Councilor Rittman on his win and wish him every success as he takes on the role of mayor. We all share the same goal, to make Troutdale a better place for our families and future generations. And I'm excited to keep on supporting this community, and I hope you'll join me in working together towards our shared vision. Thank you again for everything. This isn't the end of the journey, it's a new chapter. Now, I just want to take a moment to share my disappointment in how this campaign season has unfolded, particularly regarding the treatment of yard signs. Yard signs are a valuable way for people to show support and spread awareness for candidates they believe in. But this year, the way certain signs were treated feels unfair and frankly disheartening. I understand that some signs were removed for being in the public right-of-way, and I respect that this is against city code. However, not all signs in those areas were taken down. Only certain ones were targeted. And this selective enforcement creates a sense of bias that undermines the fairness we should expect in our democratic process. And on a personal note, I was disheartened to experience this firsthand. I had a larger sign placed on private property with full permission, stolen and replaced with 2 signs from candidates from the opposition. This wasn't just disappointing, it felt like a blatant disregard for our mutual respect and the principles of open dialogue we value in Troutdale. Campaigning should be about ideas, not tactics that silence or diminish others. Every candidate and supporter deserves a level playing field to the right and the right to be heard. Let's make sure that fairness and respect guide us now and in every election season. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Councilor Rittman.
Well, I also thank Councilor One for a good race. I don't think we disagree on too much, but obviously I was pleased with the outcome, but signs, I don't even like to think about them. It's such a pain, and there's always problems, and I'm sorry if there was some ill feeling. Certainly I did not, frankly, touch a single sign of yours or anybody's, and the rules we have in Troutdale are kind of weird. If you go over to Vancouver, they put signs up everywhere, all along the freeways and in medians, and I don't know if that's so bad, really. So anyway, there's no good way to do it, but they are a pain. Anyway, I appreciate your willingness to work with me and the rest of the council to make Troutdale even better than it is. I do want to announce, since we don't have a meeting before this happens on November 30th, the Troutdale Historical, and that's a Saturday, from noon to 3, there is Santa at the Barn, which is down at the Harlow House Barn for the kids to come and Santa, and we have a children's book reading from one of our authors, and I invite everyone in Troutdale to come to that. That's sponsored by the Troutdale Historical Society. Once again, November 30th, a Saturday upcoming. And with that, I'm done.
I'll just say, I hope everybody has a wonderful Thanksgiving. And then congratulations to all the new city councilors that will be taking over January. And congratulations, Mayor-elect Ritma. I look forward to watching Troutdale from the neighborhood and not from here. So, thank you. That's all I got.
Is that it? I move we adjourn.
Second.
Great.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor White. I did forget you. I apologize.
He's out in the boondocks.
Yeah.
Do forget.
Please, go ahead,
I'll be
Councilor.
brief. I had, while I was campaigning, I had some citizens on Second Street saying that when, with the addition of Wayfair Brewing, that the parking is spilling out to where their driveways are being blocked. And one particular gentleman has a concern because his family has health issues, and if they needed to get out, they were actually trapped in their driveway with their vehicle. So if we could have Ray check into that on Second Street. It's happening in later hours, like late evening, is where it's occurring. Just to be aware of that. And with that, I just wanted to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving, and I move to adjourn.
Oh, man.
Second.
All in favor, by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All
Aye.
right, everybody, have a good evening. Thank you.
I don't know if that was
When
an
you went to
opposition.
December